You may not have noticed, but every detail of your reality is quietly being shaped by the way you observe the world. Not by your scattered desires, not by the words you mechanically repeat, but by the silent vibration of your gaze. What you feel as you observe, what you believe as you think. That's what the universe responds to. Why do some people experience daily miracles, while others remain stuck in cycles of lack, suffering, and repetition? Is it really fate? Were some people born lucky and others cursed with eternal karma? Or is it all just the reflection of an observation pattern that never changes? The truth is, the universe doesn't play dice. It doesn't hand out rewards to some and punish others. It simply responds. And what it responds to is simple: what you observe with frequency, emotion, and belief. That becomes your field of creation. That becomes your luck or your misfortune. Today, I want to show you why your focus is actually the invisible creator of your experience, and how everything can change, not when something outside transforms, but when you change what you choose to observe. This video is not about blind positivity, it's about active consciousness. It's about stepping out of autopilot and taking the vibrational wheel of your life. Get ready to deconstruct everything you've been told about fate, luck, or chance. Because from now on, you'll understand that everything, absolutely everything, begins and ends with your gaze. Luck and misfortune are just reflections of unconscious focus. The idea that some people are blessed with luck while others are cursed with misfortune is one of the greatest myths of the human experience. It's been repeated for so long across so many generations that it's become a nearly unquestionable collective belief. But what we call luck, that string of positive events, unexpected opportunities, perfect synchronicities, isn't a prize handed out by chance. And what we call misfortune, losses, conflicts, repeated pain, isn't a mysterious punishment from destiny. All of it is simply the reflection of focus, not the conscious and direct focus you think you have when you strongly wish for something for a few minutes, but the subtle, vibrational focus that's active all the time, often without you even realizing. That's what builds your energetic field, and it's from this field that reality organizes itself around you. What you call luck happens to people who, consciously or not, have learned to observe possibilities, who nurture a gaze of trust, who choose, even amidst chaos, to focus on what can go right, who repeat that frequency daily, not as a technique, but as a way of being. The universe then responds with coherence. It rearranges the pieces to reflect the dominant pattern of that vibration. On the other hand, what's known as misfortune is nothing more than the chronic repetition of a misaligned focus. It's the constant observation of problems, scarcity, and injustice. It's the unconscious belief that things always go wrong, that life is a battle, that good things happen to others. This type of focus also generates coherence, but on a frequency that attracts experiences aligned with fear, resistance, and limitation. And here's the most important point. The universe doesn't judge. It doesn't evaluate whether your focus is right or wrong. It doesn't reward good intentions or punish negative thoughts. It simply mirrors. It amplifies what's consistent. Your dominant vibration, the one you repeat most often with emotional intensity, is what takes shape in the physical world. That's why so many people live the same painful stories over and over and believe they're victims of bad luck, because they don't realize they keep observing life through the same lens every day. They wake up focused on fear, on debt, on lack. They react to the same triggers, maintain the same mental conversations, and the energetic field interprets. This must be important to her. This is what she believes. This is what I'll reflect. Most focus is unconscious because it's been programmed over time, inherited from family, culture, childhood. It became automatic, but even automatic, it continues emitting signals, and the universe continues responding. It's not misfortune, it's just old vibration that was never questioned. Your focus is what turns on the spotlight on the stage of reality. Everything you observe with emotion, attention, and frequency gains energy, gains form, gains life. The difference between those who live miracles and those who live problems lies in what each person has chosen or allowed to observe consistently. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing is conspiring against you. But the universe will always conspire in favor of what you sustain as your focus. It's not luck, nor misfortune. It's just the reflection of what, vibrationally, you're telling the universe you want to keep experiencing. Focus is the conductor of the vibrational field. If you imagine your reality as a grand vibrational orchestra, you'd see there's an invisible conductor guiding all movements. That conductor is not chance, nor fate carved in stone. That conductor is your focus. Focus is the silent force that conducts the field. It's not just the act of paying attention, but the sum of what you observe, how you feel while observing it, and how frequently that observation repeats. When you focus on something, whether a desire or fear, you're not just thinking, you're emitting a vibration. And that vibration is a direct instruction to the quantum field, which is constantly shaping reality based on your dominant frequency. The universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you consistently vibrate. And that's where focus becomes a creative force, because it gives direction, intensity, and coherence to your energy. Quantum physics already shows us that reality isn't fixed. It behaves like a sea of possibilities until the moment of observation. And that's exactly where the power of your focus lies. It collapses possibility into form. It chooses, even unconsciously, which version of reality will take shape before your eyes. So when you observe something with emotion, repeatedly, you're creating coherence. And the quantum field responds to coherence, not to your need, not to your desperation, but to what you vibrate consistently. Intense emotions amplify this process. They give more weight to what's being observed, more energy, more creative impulse. Imagine someone who wakes up every day thinking about problems, feeling fear, reliving traumas, and focusing on what they don't want. Even if that person expresses a desire for a different life, the field isn't listening to the words. It's responding to the daily emotional focus, one loaded with resistance, mistrust, and pain. The orchestra vibrates out of tune, and the conductor continues leading the same melody. Now imagine the opposite, someone who cultivates intentional focus, who learns to observe with faith, with gratitude, with curiosity for all that's flowing. This person is building vibrational coherence with higher states. They don't need to force. They don't need to prove anything. They simply observe and feel with presence. And the universe, in response, begins aligning opportunities, connections, and solutions that resonate with that same frequency. That's why so many spiritual techniques and energetic practices revolve around mindfulness, conscious repetition, and choosing where to place your gaze. Because in the end, it all comes down to what you're conducting with your focus. The conductor in you is always active. Even when you think you're just living, you're actually creating at every moment. The question isn't whether you're focusing, it's what you're focusing on. Because that focus is activating certain possibilities and discarding others. It's tuning the field around you with your internal music. Whether harmonious or chaotic, the universe doesn't respond to your desire. It responds to your vibrational consistency. And focus is the baton that sets the rhythm of the reality that will materialize before you. You don't need to control everything. You don't need to predict the future. You just need to learn to conduct with intention, to observe with awareness, to sustain with your heart what you want to see bloom. When your focus aligns with your deepest being, reality begins to move to your rhythm. You're always focusing on something, even if you don't realize it. You don't have to be fully aware to be creating your reality. In fact, most of the time, you're shaping your life without even noticing, because focus isn't a switch you turn on and off. It's always active, always emitting signals, always silently choosing what comes to life in your vibrational field. The human mind is like a radar that never stops. And that radar is always tuned into some aspect of reality, whether it's the past, the future, the problem, or the possibility. Even when you think you're just randomly thinking, you're still directing your attention. Energy is being sent out, and that's what begins to build the dominant frequency of your field. Most people spend their day reacting. They don't choose their focus. They're pulled by it. They get swept up by notifications, outside noise, recurring worries. Focus becomes a hostage of fear, comparison, or what's going wrong. And even this automatic focus isn't harmless. It's creative. It's organizing the vibrational field based on what's being continuously observed, even unconsciously. How many times a day do you focus on what you don't want, on the scenarios you fear, the mistakes you're trying to avoid, the pain you'd rather forget? This type of observation is a silent prayer. It's an energetic affirmation. It doesn't matter if you say you want the opposite. What matters is what you're vibrating with the most intensity. The universe doesn't hear your words. It feels your frequency. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that many of the thoughts you feed throughout the day have nothing to do with the life you want to live. They're more tied to the past than the future, more connected to self-protection than creation. These are unconscious, inherited, automated points of focus. Yet they're still sending instructions to the field. This isn't a mistake. It's an invitation to awareness. Because the first step to transforming your reality is recognizing this invisible movement that's always happening, automatic focus. It disguises itself as habit, as personality, as just the way I think. But in truth, it's what has been driving the repetitions in your experience. You don't need to fight your mind. It's not about watching every thought like it's a threat. It's about observing with more presence, realizing that every thought loaded with emotion is a vibrational choice, that every gaze fixed on a scenario holds creative power, that every repeated reaction is reinforcing an energetic path. You're always focusing on something. Always, whether you're worrying, imagining, criticizing, or expressing gratitude, it's all focus. It's all vibration in motion. And the more unconscious that focus is, the more likely it is to keep repeating old patterns. That's why the true power lies in bringing light to what used to be automatic. In noticing, even for a moment, where your attention is going and with what energy. What you focus on expands, not because you want it to, but because you're vibrating it. The field doesn't argue with you. It simply responds. So even if you say you want a life of peace, if your daily focus is feeding conflict, worry, and scarcity, that's what you'll keep experiencing. This is where conscious creation begins, when you understand that you don't have to wait for something external to change your life. You just need to look, to observe, to choose. Because focus is always active. The only difference is whether it's leading you toward the reality you want or the one you've simply accepted as normal. Repeated bad luck. Repeated misaligned observation. Life doesn't punish, it reflects. What seems like a streak of bad luck, a string of unfair or negative events, is actually a vibrational observation pattern that has repeated so often it started to feel like a solid, unchangeable reality. But what's repeating isn't the bad luck itself. It's the gaze that keeps looking in the same place. It's the frequency that doesn't shift because the focus remains stuck. Many people live through cycles of frustration, loss, and scarcity, and begin to believe they're marked by some kind of curse, karma, or cruel fate. They feel like there's something external working against them, an invisible force blocking everything good. But what's actually happening is that their focus is locked into misalignment on what they don't want but continue to powerfully observe. The human mind naturally seeks familiarity, and unfortunately, pain can become familiar too. Suffering can become a known place. And when that happens, unconscious focus settles there. The person starts to anticipate problems, expect conflict, distrust the flow of life. Without realizing it, they begin observing through a lens tainted with frustration, as if that were normal, as if there were no other possibility. And the field responds with perfect accuracy, not as punishment, but as a mirror. The universe won't argue with your focus. It will simply amplify it. And if that focus is stuck in scarcity, pain, or doubt, then that's what will continue to manifest, with almost frightening consistency. It's important to understand that this isn't about blame. It's about programming, emotional and vibrational programming. Many of us were taught to expect the worst, to distrust the good, to doubt when life begins to flow. And this constant vigilance, this negative expectation, is a type of focus just as powerful as any manifestation technique. Only in reverse, and time goes on. The same results repeat, and the person concludes, "See? Nothing ever works out for me." But they don't realize that by thinking that, they're affirming exactly the frequency that sustains the reality they want to change. They're praying with misaligned observation. They're creating with disbelief. They're shaping every single day a reality that confirms what they don't want but continue to expect. And the most curious part, even when something good happens, if the focus is still tied to the old pattern, the mind will find a way to sabotage, doubt, or downplay it, because the gaze hasn't shifted. The frequency is still being pulled by a past story, a wound not yet healed, a belief that still whispers, "I can't trust this." That's why repeated bad luck isn't truly bad luck. It's just the mind recreating the same frequency day after day. It's the vibrational observer maintaining the same scenario because it never learned to choose a new focus, because it never realized it could stop observing as a victim and start observing as a creator. Reality is loyal to its observer, even when that observer is asleep, even when they don't realize, even when they think they have no control. Because focus doesn't depend on your momentary will, it depends on your dominant vibration. And as long as that vibration is being fueled by thoughts, emotions, and reactions aligned with lack, the field will continue reflecting absence. But here's the good news. Focus can be redirected. Frequency can be chosen. The gaze can learn to see differently, not through forced effort, but through presence, through intention, through small daily shifts in how you perceive the world around you. What feels like bad luck isn't a punishment. It's simply the result of a vibration asking to be seen, acknowledged, and transformed. And when the focus shifts, everything else follows. How to redirect your focus to shift your field. The power to transform your reality doesn't lie in changing everything around you. It lies in changing the point from which you're looking. Focus, as we've seen, is the most powerful tool of creation, but it's also sensitive, influenceable, and it requires conscious direction. If you don't lead it, it will be led by memories, fears, and old patterns. And that's when the field continues responding to the same vibrations as always. But once you learn to redirect your focus, everything begins to take new shape. The first step is realizing that true focus, the kind that creates, happens in the very first hours of the day. Because in that early space, your mind is still shifting between subconscious and conscious states. Emotions are more accessible and your vibration more malleable. Most people wake up and, without realizing it, step right into a cycle of automatic thoughts. They check their phones, remember debts, worries, responsibilities. Without knowing it, they're already feeding the field with old vibrations before even getting out of bed. But imagine if, in that initial moment, you directed your attention towards something different, not as a task, but as an act of creation. What if you simply observed with presence something that elevates your frequency? It can be simple. Morning light through the window, the silence of your space, the sound of the wind. Anything that awakens a feeling of expansion, lightness, or gratitude already begins to reorganize the field. This conscious choice of focus is a form of vibrational reprogramming. When you ask yourself sincerely, what can I observe now that lifts me? You're breaking the automatic cycle. You're stepping out of the old script and activating a new frequency. It's not about forcing positivity. It's about giving attention to what's already present, but you usually don't notice. Over time, this redirection becomes a new pattern. You begin to notice when your attention slips back to fear, criticism, or doubt. And when you notice, you can gently bring it back to what you actually want to create. That's the secret. Presence. Because it's not about repeating positive phrases without feeling them. It's about observing with intention, with truth. with your heart engaged. Of course, the mind will try to return to old paths. After all, they're familiar. But you don't need to fight it. You just need to keep choosing. Keep training your gaze to recognize what once went unnoticed. Because what you focus on, you feed. And what you feed expands. With the repetition of this choice, the field begins to respond. And the response doesn't come because you deserved more. It comes because you created coherence, a stable vibration, a gaze that knows what it wants and is willing to hold that frequency even before any outer evidence appears. Focus is like a path through a field of energy. Every time you choose to observe what uplifts you, you reinforce that trail. You send clearer, stronger signals, and the universe responds. Not because you beg loudly, but because you observed truthfully, because you held your gaze, because you vibrated as if it already were. Changing your focus isn't a one-time act. It's a practice of presence, a daily remembrance that you have a choice, that you can create a new point of attraction, that you can be the creator, not a reflection of what the external world wants you to observe. When you learn to redirect your focus, you stop reacting to reality and start orchestrating the field. And that's when miracles, once called luck, begin to become your new normal. Your true power lies in what you choose to feed with your gaze. There is a silent point where all creation begins, not in effort, not in struggle, not in trying to control the outside world. It begins in the moment you decide where to place your attention. Your true power doesn't lie in how many techniques you know, or how much you desire something. It lies essentially in what you choose to feed with your gaze, because what you look at with emotion and consistency becomes real. It expands. It takes root in your field. It takes form. It's easy to believe change only happens when everything around us rearranges. But what truly transforms life is not the scenery, it's the way you see it. Two people can live the exact same external situation and have completely different experiences, because one looks through the eyes of fear and the other through the eyes of creation. And the universe, ever obedient to each one's focus, will respond with paths that match that vibrational choice. The external world may seem powerful, but in truth, it's just a mirror, a reflection of all that's been cultivated within, often without awareness. When you keep observing life as if you're a victim of circumstance, you hand your power over to outside forces. You begin to believe you have no choice, that life is random, that you must wait for a stroke of luck. But when you shift your gaze, something profound happens. Energy realigns. Reality begins to respond from a different place. To observe with intention is a sacred act. It's the silent alchemy of conscious creation. It doesn't mean denying what's hard or pretending everything's fine. It means not giving more energy to what shrinks you. It means not feeding with your gaze what you no longer wish to live. Because everything you focus on with emotion becomes stronger, takes root, and fills space in your field. Contrary to what we've been taught, you don't need something outside to change so that you feel peace, abundance, or love. These states aren't rewards, they're frequencies. And these frequencies don't come from the world. They arise from focus. When you choose to look toward what expands you, even subtly, you start emitting a vibration that opens invisible doors. You begin aligning your energy with what you want to see bloom. That's why so many real changes happen when no one is watching. When, in an intimate and silent moment, someone chooses to stop observing with suspicion and starts looking with faith. When they choose to stop waiting for proof and begin feeling as if it already is. When they decide not to feed with their gaze what represents the past they're ready to leave behind. You set yourself free when you stop observing as a victim and start observing as a creator. When you understand that every sustained thought, every nourished emotion, every focused choice is a seed planted in the field of reality. And that seed doesn't respond to urgency, but to coherence. The more you observe with presence, the deeper that new vibration roots itself. And then the fruits come, not as magic, but as the natural result of a well-nurtured field. True power isn't in controlling everything, nor in resisting what hurts. It's in choosing, each day, with a present heart, what you will feed with your gaze. Because where your focus is, your frequency is. And where your frequency is, your point of attraction lives. When you become the guardian of your focus, everything begins to change. Not because the world bowed to your desires, but because you aligned with the most authentic and powerful version of yourself. The one who knows without doubt that to create is to choose, and to choose is to look truthfully at what you already are. We've reached the end of this journey, and perhaps now you can see with different eyes what you once called luck or misfortune. The truth is, nothing happens by chance. The universe doesn't distribute blessings and challenges randomly. It simply responds. And what it responds to is your focus. Vibrational, emotional, continuous. Everything you live is a reflection of what you observe with the most presence. Reality is not a fixed fate, but a mirror that responds to the gaze you hold. Shift your focus, and the reflection inevitably shifts too. Over the next 24 hours, choose a new focus. Observe what expands you. Observe as if it already were, and feel the field begin to respond, silently, with coherence and perfection. Nothing is luck. Nothing is misfortune. It's just the reflection of your deepest focus. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you observe, with faith and presence.